Yeah,
chromosomes don't necessarily mean you're male or female.
Gender.
With gender
identity. Go ahead. No, so
especially, but even so, you have a thing like Klinefelter's syndrome. So you don't know what you're talking about. You're not educated on genetics.
Would you like to discuss the genetics? Or
well, no,
what
no.
Are your genetics?
So I'd stay away from the genetics and back to the brain scans.
You cut that out now, or you'll go home in an ambulance.
Yeah, that seems mildly inappropriate for a political discussion.
Fuck her right in the pussy!
You to consider, you can believe what you want, but I would ask you to consider this. Shouting institutional racism does not actually combat racism. You have to find individual instances, and you have to show me who the racists are so that we can fight them together. I hate racism. I think it's evil. But if you're just going to say institutional racism every time something bad happens, there's no way to fight it. I need a policy that you're proposing, or I need a person who's actually racist so that we can fight it together, or we can determine whether the policy is good. What I find really problematic is the virtue signaling that I see by so many people on the other side, which is, I don't have to give you the racist, I don't have to tell you who he is or what measures I'm proposing. I just say institutional racism, everybody cheers for me because that's an approved point of view, and now we move on with our lives. You haven't helped anybody, you've just made yourself feel better.
So the first thing that I hate today is this insane piece by some crazy person named Jodi Allard. She's apparently a feminist blogger. First of all feminist bloggers are, I don't mean to generalize, but they're all crazy. So she actually has a piece today called, the title of it is, "I'm done pretending men are safe, even my sons." Really. And the entire thing is about how her sons are potential rapists. She says, "I have 2 sons. They're strong and compassionate, the kind of boys other parents are glad to meet when their daughters bring them home for dinner. They are good boys in the ways good boys are, but they are not safe boys. I'm starting to believe there's no such thing." She is talking about her own children being potential rapists because of rape culture. She said, "I wrote an essay in the Washington Post last year during the height of the Brock Turner case about my sons in rape culture. I didn't think it would be controversial when I wrote it. I was sure most parents grappled with raising sons in the midst of rape culture." Well, no, actually. It turns out that the vast majority of us who grow up as boys in households that have good parents, we're not part of a rape culture because we are taught at a very early age that you're not supposed to rape people, right? That rape is a bad thing. I thought this was a pretty clear rule of Western civilization for the past 1,000 years or so. Because I didn't think it would be controversial when I wrote it. The struggle I wrote about was universal, I thought, but I was wrong. My essay went semi-viral, and for the first time, my sons encountered my words about them on their friends' phones, their teachers' computers, and even overheard them discussed by strangers on a crowded metro bus. Right, because when you say your sons are potential rapists, that might have some bad ramifications. They're your kids, you stupid idiot. And then she says it was one thing to agree to be written about in relative obscurity, and quite another to have my words intrude on their daily lives. By the way, this is the same lady who wrote a column about how one of her sons was apparently suicidal, with a mother like this, and she says, one of my sons is suicidal, so we sat down and watched 13 Reasons Why. Are you the stupidest person on planet Earth? Okay, have you ever seen 13 Reasons Why? Like half the show is dedicated to why suicide is a choice that is driven by outside forces. It's not really in your hands. Anyways, she says, "One of my sons was hurt by my words, although he's never told me so. He doesn't understand why I lumped him and his brother together in my essay. He sees himself as the good one, the one who is sensitive and thoughtful and who listens instead of reacts. He doesn't understand that even quiet misogyny is misogyny, and not all sexists sound like Twitter trolls." So he seems like a nice kid, but she's calling him a sexist and a rapist. He's angry at me now, although he won't admit that either, and his anger led him to conservative websites and YouTube channels. Okay, if the son of Jodi Allard is watching this right now, please write me an email. I would be happy to have you intern with us here over at the Daily Wire. I think that you deserve better than what your mother has provided to you, a label as a potential rapist. I don't think you're a rapist. I don't think you're a potential rapist. You seem like a nice person. Your mother, however, seems like she is a harridan. She says, "I teeter frequently between supporting my son and educating him. Is it my job as his mother to ensure he feels safe emotionally, no matter what violence he spews?" Can she give an example of like the violence that her son is spewing? Is he coming home and going, rape, 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 rape? Like what exactly is he doing? Is he coming home and he's just saying, "I saw a girl on the bus today. You know what I thought? I thought rape." I'm pretty sure that's not what happened, but when you're a crazy person, then this is what happened. And then she starts talking about her dating life. Okay, why do feminists always feel the need to talk about their dating life like anybody cares? She says, "I joined Bumble recently after a 6+ year break from dating. I'm not overly interested in dating in the first place, but I'm starved for adult conversation, so dating feels like a necessary evil." Well, no, there's some of us who have friends. I mean, you could do that. She says, "Bumble, as I explained to my married friends, is like feminist Tinder. Women have to initiate contact with men, so there's no inbox full of bleep pics every day. But feminists or not, the men are no different from the men anywhere else, and I quickly felt deflated. All men are..." Okay, I have a general recommendation. If you believe that all men or all women are crazy, that everybody's terrible, maybe it's just you. Maybe it's just you. If every relationship you've ever had has gone bad, maybe it's not because all the people you know are terrible. Maybe you suck as a human. Okay, and I'm going to go with that on this one. She says, my sons won't rape unconscious women behind a dumpster, and neither will most of the progressive men I know. But what all of these men share in common, even my sons, is a relentless questioning and disbelief of the female experience. I didn't realize the common female experience was to be raped while unconscious behind a dumpster. I know a few females, and I don't know any of them who've been raped while unconscious behind a dumpster, or at least none who have told me about it. And if they did tell me about that, I would say, can we find the person and hunt them down? Like, that would be my first reaction. Can we tell the police? And if not, is there a way that we can kill this person and get away with it? Like, that seems like the best possible, like, is that not feminist enough? Do I have to do more than that? So I do not want to prove my pain or provide enough evidence to convince anyone that my trauma is merited. Okay, if you accuse someone of rape, you might have to provide evidence of actual rape. Like, you shouldn't just be able to accuse anyone of any crime. Totally insane. Totally insane. Child Protective Services needs to show up, like, right now at this lady's door. Thank God, it sounds like her sons are getting old enough that they get to leave home. Leave now. Leave now, okay? I will try to find a way to put you up in your own apartment. Seriously. Okay? You deserve to get out of there right now, Jody Allard's children. My God.
Earlier tonight, I spoke with Ben Shapiro, editor-in-chief of the Daily Wire. What do you make of this? Is it an anomaly, or do you think this is a movement?
No, I do think this is a movement. I think the next wave of Democrats are going to be much closer to Bernie Sanders brand Democrats than even Nancy Pelosi brand Democrats. And what you see here is the sort of howling at the moon branch of the Democratic Party, in which they throw out whatever radical proposal they want and then suggest that this is truly authentic, that moral clarity lies in making proposals that are completely untenable, that will never be paid for. You know, this person was on MSNBC this morning, and she was asked specifically about how she'd pay for all of this, and she proceeded to blab for a solid 2 minutes without giving an answer to that question, because she doesn't have a way of paying for any of this. But, of course, the Democratic base has decided that it is much more important to have somebody who is virtue signaling about why everybody should have a government job and why housing should be government provided than to actually have candidates who have policies that can never be implemented.
Yeah, she was talking about President Trump also earlier on MSNBC, and calling him a authoritarian hyper-capitalist is the way that she termed him. And, you know, when you look back, let's look back at this shot from President Trump, and the difference in President Obama is how they approach capitalism.
If you got a business, you didn't build that. Somebody else made that happen.
Nobody's cut regulations like we have. Nobody's created tax cuts like we have.
I mean, there can't be sharper voices that are more different on this issue than we've had in the last two presidents, Ben.
No question. But and I think that's what the Democrats are picking on, is the fact that the Democrats have always been moving in this direction, or at least they have been significantly in the past 8 years. There's a reason Bernie Sanders came very close to knocking off Hillary Clinton in primaries, and it is pathetic to say that a near octogenarian is the wave of the future, but I think that Bernie Sanders has a lot more acolytes among the under 30 crowd than Hillary Clinton ever did, and this is pretty good proof of that.
I thought this was, you know, particularly ironic. Lin-Manuel Miranda, who I think is a genius. I thought Hamilton was wonderful, but I think it's interesting that someone who essentially wrote a musical that is a love letter to the founding fathers and to the Federalist Papers and to Alexander Hamilton is applauding. He's saying, congratulations to you. You know, for this woman who is essentially, you know, not essentially, she's put herself out there as a socialist. What do you make of that?
Yeah. And, you know, she's as radical as can be. But, again, it is very easy to virtue signal about policies that have no impact when they're never implemented. Yeah. Bernie Sanders never did anything in the Senate until he ran for president. And I highly doubt that any of the policies that are espoused by Ocasio-Sanchez are really going to result in anything real here, because it's easy to go home and say that big government's going to solve all your problems. But when it comes time to hash out the actual legislation, it's going to be pretty difficult to get that stuff passed. So the Democrats, who are so all-fired eager about the new wave of the Democratic future, they may find that this is not in the mainstream. This is a New York district. It has been a Democratic district for 20-odd years. I mean, longer than that. But the person she replaced had been a 10-term congressperson. So it's not as though winning a Democratic primary means you're the wave of the future all across America. It means you want a Democratic Party in New York, for goodness sake.
Yeah, well, Joe Crowley didn't show up for the debate. He might be rethinking that at this point. I have about a minute left with you, Ben, and I do want to ask you your reaction to the huge news today, the resignation of Justice Kennedy, and what you think.
I mean, it's just astonishing, obviously. I was really not expecting that Justice Kennedy would step down, given that he's the swing vote. And it gives President Trump an enormous opportunity to remake the court in a conservative constitutionalist image for a full generation, which is again, President Trump has been both lucky and good, and he has an opportunity now that he's been lucky to be good again here.
Yeah, well, I know you, well, maybe you didn't suggest yourself, but you did suggest.
Hey, I'll take it. If I'm nominated, I'll take it. Come on.
Why not, right? You have nothing else to do.
The confirmation hearings would be lit.
Exactly, they would be. I think it was Ann Coulter who first suggested back when you were 21, when you were a law student at Harvard, that you would actually make an excellent Supreme Court justice. And as you pointed out today, you'd have a pretty good long run at it, most likely.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe there for a solid 60 years. So, Mr. President, if you're looking for somebody who's going to have several decades on the court, longer than anybody else you're looking at, I'll throw my hat in the ring. And if not, I'll just cry myself to sleep.
You know what?
It'll be all right.
My Twitter feed is just flowing right now with people who are just jumping on board. Thank you so much, Ben. It's always great to see you. Thanks so much.
Good to see you.